Jai Ma. Welcome everybody. We are proceeding along with study of Karma Yoga, and today I shall be exploring two very renowned verses from the Bhagavad Gita. And when we understand the essence of these two verses, that's pretty much what we'll be able to do, probably two verses. We're really slowing down now because they are deep. Then our life changes because it lays to rest a lot of unnecessary angst that we were holding on to. You might have heard me many times, Sadasya, say, Shri Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. Jagat means the world. And we call him the Guru of the world, the Guru of Gurus, the Guru of the whole world, because he teaches humanity how to be humane. And he teaches us how to deal with our suffering here and now. Very pragmatic matters. And he does not ask us to rise from our self-created sorrow and delusions for some promised fruit in an unknown heaven at the feet of an unknown God. He shows how God is coming to us through his creation or her creation. Can't deny that there is a divine intelligence everywhere in every eye. But then he invites us to find that God within each other and ourselves also. So what a profound teaching this Bhagavad Gita is. And with each verse, you will feel more and more at rest with your existence. And you will find tools to use in your daily life. And I believe some of you already are finding so much good use. And Karma Yoga is so useful for all of us. Especially in dealing with relationships and professional challenges, which is our daily life. So I really look forward to teaching you these two verses. The verse 46 and then verse 47 is the ultimate verse, actually. Anytime people remember the Bhagavad Gita, then they start chanting Karmanyavadhikaraste. So it's like a poster verse for the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know how many people understand it because people do two things with the verse 47. The people who have teachers who have explained to them properly what it means continue with cultivating excellence in their work, but leave the results to Ishvara, but they do their part. And the others who don't have a teacher, they say, what's the use of doing any work? Everything is up to Ishvara anyway. So it creates both fatalism by people who don't understand the verse, and it creates intelligent workers amongst people who understand the verse. So it can lead to confusion, whether willpower is more important or just quiet acceptance. And I shall be happy to clarify those clouds for you. So let us be grateful to the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of the 108 Upanishads. Let us be grateful to the Lord Brahman, who has come forth as Lord Krishna to teach us this amazing wisdom that pertains to our petty lives. And he comes down to us at our level to tell us about the things we get wound up with, And I just really love how pragmatic Bhagavad Gita is. So let us invite Narayana, Brahman in many forms. As you know that our legacy teachings begin with Narayana in the form of Ishvara, and then as form of Lord Krishna, and then Durga. So we shall continue studying. Om Narayana Samarambham Vyasa Shankara Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायण स्वयं व्यासेनाग्रथितां पुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवत भवद्वेषणीम् श्रीकृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Okay, so I shall just directly plunge into verse 46 and verse 47, rather than reviewing 45, in which basically the beginning attitudes of Karma Yoga were introduced. Karma Yoga, in short, is how to embody actions in the world so that they are intelligent actions. They do not cause suffering right away or in the distant future, because karma will have karma phalam. And if we are unconscious about them, then we will not sow seeds carefully. And so there is a whole sub-science of how to act intelligently, strategically, so that there is maximum inner growth, because we remember we are spiritual beings and our goal is way beyond artha kama, into sattva, generating sattva through dharma moksha. So that is what the first verse was about, 45, and now 46. In verse 46, Lord is, he's talking to humanity through Arjuna, his student, and he is trying to explain to us why it's a continuation of verse 45 as to why dharma moksha would be such important pursuits. And why not artha kama? Artha means abundance and money and, house and all those things. And kama means pleasures and, acquisition and, leisure and other things. Why would artha kama be any less? And, is he giving us, is he making us wear holy shoes and walk around on earth? Is he telling us that artha kama is not good for you? Or is he doing a mass conversion of humanity into, dharma and mumukshus, dharmic mumukshus, and kind of denouncing artha kama? Is he doing that? Because as far as we know, the Vedas have made artha kama very important. But right in the verse 45, he had said that don't follow artha kama alone, also cultivate dharma moksha. Right there, he had said that. Don't just, nir-yoga-kshema. Yoga-kshema means don't just spend all your life in acquiring and preserving what you have acquired. Spend your whole life in it, which is how people spend their life, Some of their last decisions on deathbed are not anything higher than, oh dear, I forgot to write my will, and I didn't tell you who gets my necklace and who gets my chest of drawers and things like that. So that's all we think about, All life we acquired the chest of drawers, and at birth, death, we want to give it to somebody our ego likes. So that's all the net life that we have. So he was saying, don't do that. Atmavan, he said in verse 45, be very mindful, be very alert. And, go beyond this world, which is, showing you all these carrots of, come hither, we shall give you artha kama. But in verse 46, he says, Yavanartha udapane sarvata samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. So what he's trying to do is he is talking to people who have come this far, and he actually wants to convince us that by making moksha purushartha, and moksha purushartha is knowing who you are, your spirit, you are not just, and that your ego is running around everything, and it's never fulfilled, and they are asking you to seek your already fulfilled self, which is purnam, which is anandam. Purnam means radical fullness, which is anantam, it is infinite, and which is anandam, infinitely full, infinitely blissful. So if you're going for the blissful self, you are actually not losing out on anything, because, and he gives the example that the exact English is the exact meaning is that for a wise Brahmin, Swadharma, Brahmin, the Brahman means spiritual seeker, the benefit that is available in the Vedas is the same as the benefit available in a pond when there is a flood everywhere. So pay attention. He's not denouncing the Vedas, but he's saying that remember, he has been talking about the ritualistic portion of the Vedas, which promises, a beautiful wife, a handsome child, a beautiful palace, thousands of cows. Do this fire ritual, get this. Do this puja, get this. And I had mentioned to you, so I won't go all over again, that even those things are legitimate. But what had happened was that people were only focusing upon that, and they had forgotten the larger context of dharma moksha. We deserve everything. And the Veda even had, tools to help us. But probably even by the time Krishna gave his discourse, people were only focusing on arthakama, arthakama. Oh, dear priest, oh, dear Lord, dear priest, I don't have a beautiful partner. So can I do a yajna and create a partner? Many of my students would say, can I do a yajna to find a partner? So the point is, sometimes it's valid to do that, but sometimes it's not, especially if that's our only tendency. So what he's trying to say here is that many people go to the Vedas, or they are always seeking Artha Kama, and they go to the Vedas for that part. They will go to a priest who does yajnas and really look up to them. That would be a more fascinating time spent doing a fire ritual for a benefit, rather than spending time understanding how you can be more dharmic, or how you can connect with your free self, because this takes energy, investment, intellect, and purification. So definitely there is some energy that's involved here. But what he wants to say here is that there is relevance of the pond. Definitely, you can imagine a pond, next to a community. You can, drink water, you can, wash your clothes, you can do some fishing, etc., etc. But this word, sampaludodake, sampludodake. This sampludodake doesn't just mean a flood. It means really like a fresh water body of water, fresh water. So it's like it's everywhere. So it's infinite, and compared to a pond, which is much smaller. So what he's trying to say here is that when you choose moksha, when you choose the infinite joy, infinite bliss, when you choose moksha and try to connect with your bliss inner being, infinite always includes the finite. So when you find your true self, when you achieve moksha, the more you connect with yourself, the more you shall find that the happiness from your partner or profession and everything has increased for you. So even your artha kama are included in moksha. Okay? Artha kama and dharma are all included in moksha. But artha kama alone do not include dharma and moksha. So the finite, the pond, does not include the infinite, which is that vast flood-like state of so much fresh water. It doesn't include that. Pond only has a small amount of water contained in a closed, space. But similarly, the infinite bliss that you shall achieve, the inner growth and the bliss, the inner growth from dharma and the bliss that you shall achieve from moksha is infinite. You think that, oh, if I just can go and do this little bit more, or, so you are giving so much attention to artha kama, excluding dharma moksha. What you must understand is that nowhere will dharma moksha exclude artha kama. Moksha, purushartha, when it is our main purushartha, when it becomes our main goal, moksha means to know more about my indwelling perfection. And even when we get drops of it, when we start getting closer, we shall find that our efficiency in achieving material abundance, in achieving and enjoying pleasures, it all enhances, it doesn't decrease. I would like to know, I would like to see some hands do this, if you agree. Okay, that's good to know. That's good that, I'm glad I've been talking about these topics for some time, because if it's brand new, you don't understand it. So it sometimes feels like, oh, because so many spiritual paths tell you that leave the world behind. Would you agree? That the world is our hindrance. But actually in Moksha Purushartha, in the Veda, we have inherited the world. We deserve to enjoy the world. Every pleasure is ours. Every pleasure, every joy, every playfulness, it all belongs to us. But when we do it in a very small way, and we get very obsessive about artha kama, like that little ego trying to push its shopping cart through the samsara. We can look like those people who are collecting cans. So we think, oh, I got 40 cans, but they're only dirty beer cans. That's all. But if you are coming with moksha, then you don't need a shopping cart, because you can't collect enough artha kama. So it doesn't exclude anything. That's all he's really trying to say, that you're not losing out on anything. And here, when he's talking about Brahman, he's, as you know, talking about the cultured, discriminative state of mind of a spiritual seeker. I've had a class with you on on Swadharma. So if you are a trader thought process, then you're going to be thinking, well, moksha is demanding something from me, like it's taking me away from my job. Does it? Because you could be 24/7 running your company or your boutique or your company, but all moksha requires is for you to remember that you're not just that person. Moksha is just asking you for moment to remember that I'm spirit and I'm an infinite being. And dharma is simply asking you that when you run your business, you do it on a firm foundation of ethics. And we have all seen in Enron and everything that something that is non-dharmic never lasts. And more now than ever, the dharmic principles, even in corporate world, are really coming forward. And the dharmic players go very far. And the non-dharmic players may have a flash of enjoyment because of some pole prarabdha karma, but sooner or later, dharma brings with it, adharma brings with it, fall and disfame and papam, basically. So, if you take dharma and moksha into the world, whether you're going to be walking on, being a top model, a film actress, what can I think of as a non-spiritual, everything is spiritual, but you want to be, you're selling soap all your life, you want to spend a lot of time making beautiful soap and selling that, go for it. But you don't just have to focus on artha kama. If dharma moksha was, then you become a karma yogi, and then you are going to go into this for the long haul. So dharma moksha are not just purusharthas for the acharyas and her students and for the holy people, but it's for everyday people. Karma yoga is a teaching for the everyday householder, grahastha ashrama people who live in the society and do daily society roles. That's all you are being told to do. So even if you are going to be doing anything, you want to have, and don't get caught up thinking that, oh, I can't let go of my pond, or that image of, the shopping cart trailing along with a few cans in it of happiness. You don't even know the bliss that's awaiting you, and, the joy and the inner peace that comes with dharma. You don't even know what is awaiting you. So this is what the Lord wants to assure us, that, you shall have that. So in a way, he's, it's just the beginning of the karma yoga. So he just wants to keep reassuring us. And look how wise and how strategic is this intervention of the shloka, because many times a typical egoic mind thinks, oh, right, artha kama bad, dharma moksha good. How many of you default thought that? Let's be honest. Right? No. Dharma kama are very important purusharthas, except that we want to sandwich it between dharma and moksha. You want moksha and dharma, you want to include all four. So if you say I have moksha purushartha as a very important part of my life, then it means that dharma, artha, kama are very important to you. Okay. So typically in a karma yogi will put dharma first. Is it ethical or not? Make sure they are becoming abundant in relationships or material nature, which is artha, and they are having lots and lots of pleasure, which they deserve based on their age appropriate, society appropriate pleasure. And because it's dharma, so it will be ethical. And at the end, there will be moksha, that no matter what I'm doing, did I forget who I am? Or is it leading me closer and closer to who I am? That's all. Do you like that? Do you like being that big lake of fresh water, and we don't know its boundaries? That's why it's called flooded, which means it's a very interesting use of the Sanskrit word, which is like there's so much water it appears like there's a flood, which means we don't know where it's ending, which means it's infinite. So you want to go for the infinite rather than a pond of happiness. That is what he is saying in verse 46. Now let us spend our bulk of time understanding the verse 47. Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phal heturbuhu ma te sangostva karmani. This is a very important verse, and fortunately I'm writing on it right now also, so it's very helpful. Should be teaching it to you also at the same time. So let me give you the word by word breakdown. Okay. So I wrote it on this little sheet here. So te, T-A, te means because we say ma, in the second line we say ma karma phal hetur buhu ma te sangostva karmani. This te means you have. Okay. Te means you have. And then in the first line you have karmane va adhikaraste. Adhikarasti. Adhikar means you have a choice. Adhikar means a choice. A choice. Okay. This is such an important verse that I'm breaking it out down to for you line by line. Okay. And then Vidya, if you can send that forward right away, that would be helpful. Then the next line is karmani eva. Karmani, because you see that first line, karmanne vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So karmani eva means over action alone. So we have mentioned you have a choice over action alone. Karmani eva means EVA eva. Karmani, Karmani, over action alone. Vidya, can you quickly type it up in a chat for everybody when I say Karmani eva? When I say the Sanskrit, can you write the English? Yeah. Then we have the next line is Ma, M-A-A, Ma, Kadachana Phaleshu. Ma, Kadachana Phaleshu. And this means never over results. So what have we come up till now? You have a choice over action alone, never over results. The next line is Ma, M-A-A, Bhuhu, B-H-U, Bhuhu, Bhuhu. Ma, Bhuhu, B, B, I don't know, Vidya will write it for you. Bhuhu, Karma Phala Hetuhu. Ma, Bhuhu, Karma Phala Hetuhu. And this means, may you not be motivated by the results of action. May you not be motivated by the results of action. And the next one is Ma, M-A-A, Te, T-A, Astu. Ma, Te, Astu. Ma, Te, Astu. This means, may you not have. May you not have. The next one is Sangha, S-A-N-G-H-A, Sangha, an inclination / attachment. May you have. Sangha means an inclination / attachment. And the last word is akarmani, A-K-A-R-M-A-N-I. Akarmani means towards non-action. So what have you understood? You have a choice over action alone, never over results. May you not be motivated by the results of action. May you not have an inclination / attachment towards non-action. Okay, this is the essence of karma yoga. This is a very important verse. And if you understand this today, you shall have a very clear strategy with how to proceed in life. Okay, at least maybe I'm overselling it, but it helped me a lot, you know, and it prevented me from being, it allowed me to be a risk taker, but it allowed me to be relaxed also. So let me open my notes for you. A strategic risk taker and a relaxed person. Okay. So when he says, te adhikaraha, you have a choice. When he says that, what he's saying is right away, Ishvara is telling humanity, you have free will to make a choice. You have free will to determine what actions you will take in your life. You have it. Okay? And it is exactly for this free will that we have the Vivek Shakti, the ability to discern, you know, make choices. You know, if you ask my dog, he's very sweet, he'll come to you, he'll want a walk. But if you say, what are your next 2 year plans? He only has immediate plans, you know. So he doesn't use his free will to plan ahead. But we are able to plan ahead. We are able to look at our past. We are able to take lessons from our past. We are able to make deductions, or, you know, and you know, come to conclusions. So we have a very advanced mental faculty, because you say, te adhikaraha, you have a choice. That means you have free will. That is why we have, we can give orders to our senses, incoming senses, outgoing senses. We can restrain them if you want. If you step on a snake, it's going to come back and hiss you. That's the nature of the snake. It's not evil, it's just its nature. But if somebody steps on you and you know that they didn't mean it, or you know that if they're out there, it's beyond their capacity to not step on you, you have so many choices to respond. You don't necessarily have to respond the same manner. So we are not a conditioned being. We have karmani adhikaraha asti. We have a choice over our actions. Please accept your free will. Please accept your choice, because this is a privilege given to you in the human body. Because this lifetime you have a human body, and the human body is equipped with a very amazing human brain and 10 senses, and you can use it. This is your you have choice. So he is giving this free will to us, okay? But then he puts, whenever we have free will over something, we need boundaries. We need to know where we have free will and where we don't have free will, because if you look at the plant world, the animal world, and everybody, they don't have that much free will. And pretty much, they may have small free will, like asking for a cookie or something. But if you give it, don't give it, they can't really go beyond that point. So, but we do. But what is our limit? So there he says, karmani eva. He says that over action alone, you have free will. Ma kadachana phaleshu, never over results. What does this mean? So let me first now, what does it mean, never over results? Because this confuses us. And this is where the oral teaching comes in to explain to you that what does that never mean, and etc. So I'm just planning how should I teach it. Yeah. So to back off from this exact verses to exact meaning, what are we trying to achieve here? Probably I should start with that here. We're trying to understand or cultivate a healthy attitude with which we can act in the world. And any healthy attitude, we can't just take on an attitude. For an attitude, you need some value clearing, you need some understanding, you need a reality adjustment. And so we are trying to explain to you cosmically how the cosmos works with your free will, with your actions. Because you can say, well, yeah, I use my free will, but things don't go my way. So I get scared and I don't know what to do, what not to do. Sometimes I find I'm controlling outcomes. So we want to clear that whole canvas here for you. And so to be able to cultivate the correct attitude and to have a proper understanding beneath it, the first thing Lord has established for you is that you do have free will. Okay. Because there are many people who say, oh, there is no free will. Everything is pre-written, everything is karma, everything is, even, my every breath is, there's no free will at all. It's all predetermined, But that is not the Vedic view. That is not the Upanishadic view. In fact, they say that you have a free will. You are not leading a completely programmed life. You have adhikara asti. You have it. Okay. So you have to be responsible, intelligent, judicious to use it. And that's the rest of it will be how to use it. But then in the next line, he says, but with karma phalam. So once you have acted, you do not have choice as to what will be the results of your action. Okay. And for example, you all know I'm working on a book right now, so I can only write the book. I don't know if, it will ultimately uplift some minds or it will confuse them more. One can only write with one's best effort. We don't know if, I will be able to, what will happen to that book and whose hand it will fall, what it will do in the long run to the humanity's consciousness. We don't know all that. I mean, one can only be in the moment, and I can use my free will every day to say, okay, I will not, I will use my time creatively and constructively without neglecting any of my important duties to complete the project. So it is important for us to understand where is our jurisdiction, where do we have choice, and where are we choiceless. Okay, we don't have choice. So where we do have choice, we should operate rather intelligently there. We should really maximize our free will. And where we are somewhat choiceless as to what will happen as a result of our actions, we should again intelligently accept it. So sometimes what happens is we don't put in effort where we could have made a difference. So when the action is happening, we are lackadaisical because we're thinking, who knows, whatever. And then we start controlling what is the choiceless. So we do the opposite. Can I see some hands if that's normal thing for humanity? Yeah. So it's really important. This is very clarifying where you can make a difference in the bigger scheme of things and where you cannot. And we explain it further. So where do you have choice and where are you choiceless? And to be operating intelligently and knowing the law, that really helps, so now he's saying, Lord is saying that you do not have control on the outcome. What does it mean? So I had asked Baba, like, does it mean I have no control at all? I have no, I cannot determine what the karma phalam will be of, any action that I am taking. So Baba gave a very wise answer. He said that until the action is with you, you are thinking about it, you're planning it, you're executing it, it's in your jurisdiction. You are its pure sovereign author. But once you've done it, when you do something, there are a lot of contributory factors that influence the result. So an example can be that, you can, like right now, gardening is on the top of my mind since spring. So, you can till the land, you can clear, you can aerate it, you can, add some earthworms to it, you can do what it takes to, plant your seeds, you can water them on time, you can use some online resources or garden books to figure out what's their watering schedule. You can do many things that are in your jurisdiction. And that would be smart, because it's like, okay, what kind of shade do they like? Or do they like full sun? Or do they like dappled sunlight? Those little things that I, as a gardener, can find out if I don't have that knowledge. And, and these are all my contributory factors that I'm bringing in. I'm using my free will to educate myself, to plan a good day, to take out time to make sure I water my plants. I don't just, depend on drip irrigation. I will, get out there with my hose and, do what it takes. So all these things are in my control. But what may not be in my control is that still there may be an unexpected storm, or there might be, so much water that my seedlings, drowned, my saplings drowned, or, there might be, a water shortage. Something may keep me away from coming out and taking care of them. So there are so many factors. So my contribution or my action can only partially determine the results. It definitely cannot completely be in my hand. So therefore, but what we do is we tend to become very, very, pessimistic. Now, another example can be that, maybe I'll come to that example later when I talk about, I'm just coming to that. So what we tend to do is we tend to be like, we just want black or white answers. If I'm writing the book, how is it going to do, good or bad? If I'm planting this tree, will I get the fruit? in how many years. And even it will say, most, okay, this is a persimmon tree and it shall give you a fruit in 2 years. And when it doesn't give the fruit, you're like, oh, my persimmon tree, why is it not working for me? I met a gardener recently who said that the thing that his plants taught him was patience. And he kept talking to one of his fruit trees, and after 18 years, it gave the fruit. So for 18 years, he kept doing his part. And, all the other, because he has some 23 something fruit trees in his garden, and that was the one tree that wouldn't give the fruit. So he got quite caught up with it, but he kept, taking care of it and being patient. And after 18th year, just when he was leaving his home, that year they were moving. He was very, heartbroken to be leaving his trees behind, but it gave him fruit. So this was not in his, this was karma phalam or tree phalam. Phalam means fruit. It was not in control. And it's so simple. We all know this, but we need Bhagavad Gita and Lord Krishna to point out to us that why do we get so controlling and then so sorrowful and dejected, and why can't we be so simply rational that, what, I can do this part, I've done my part, and now there are going to be all these factors that are including, which we'll talk about more, what factors and karma and all, but there's so many things that connect to it in the cosmos before it turns into a result. And so, we shouldn't become the kind of people who just want, like I've put in, if I've put in 5 units of work, I want 5 units of fruit. You might get 1 unit, you might get 0 unit, you might get 30 units. And this is not in our control. So we have extremes. There are people, these are the rationalists who say, we control everything and I'll develop a program and an app to do it. And, oh, you're just weak-minded people who say you can control the outcome. We can. And then there are those who say, what's the use? No matter what I do, God wants to just do whatever. I'm just unlucky, or, etc., etc. So there's 2 extremes. One wants to completely control the outcome. One feels like, what's the use of controlling the outcome? But Bhagavad Gita says that a karma yogi has a very mature understanding, and they say, you know what? Let me play my role. Let me do my role. But it's not a total role, because totality belongs to Ishvara and my individuality belongs to me. So I have my role cut out, and let me do it with honesty, perseverance, intelligence, strategy. Let me bring expertise. Let me bring education. Let me bring in training. Let me bring in my good dharma. Let me bring in my best and do my part. So that is what you can do. A really common example that I'm not the only teacher, many Bhagavad Gita teachers gave is like, the common democratic voting pattern. You show up, you're told, your vote is really important, your vote is really important. Some people become fatalistic and say, what's the use? My vote doesn't count. They really believe that their vote doesn't count in the ocean of votes. So they don't even show up. And then there are some people who vote and they really hope it's going to make the difference. But there are some people who say, let me do my part. But that doesn't always mean that, the person I have chosen to be my representative is going to be my representative, and the results go their way or they don't go their way. It doesn't break their heart. They understand the system, that we all have pieces of the pie and we all have to bake them. But the total pie is not in our jurisdiction, and there has to be a mental preparedness around this fact that the totality of the result is not in my hand. And this actually is a karma yogi attitude. This is actually an intelligent attitude, that you cannot determine the result, but you can determine the effort. So if you're jumping ahead of yourself, and you're constantly determining the result, constantly worrying about the result, which we do, and we are taught to do. We're actually trained to do that. Then what happens, and it's considered, smart, but then what happens is that we become, we're wasting a lot of mental energy because nobody can control those, results. So that is why, the serenity prayer of, may, may I accept, may I have the strength to accept what I cannot change, and the strength to change what I can change, and the knowledge to, I don't know the exact words, but to know the difference between them. Really feels like a karma yoga prayer, actually. So now the word, what is the word for free will in Sanskrit? The word for free will is the same as the word we are using for human goal, called purushartha. So purusha artha, can you write that, Vidya? It has two meanings. It means, one means free will and the other means human striving or human goal. And I think it's really brilliant to have the same word, because you cannot have one without the other. So sometimes you say, come on, apply your purushartha, which means come on, apply your willpower. And if you don't apply your willpower, you shall not achieve artha, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Nothing can be achieved. Ishvara, the totality, won't drop it in your lap if you don't apply your purushartha for purusharthas, for those goals. So willpower is rather important. So, but when he says that, you don't have this adhikar, or you don't have, your willpower stops with the result of actions, the results of action, then, we start questioning about this word called destiny, So is destiny dominating my life? There are some people, and I mentioned the case of some people who, put in a lot of effort, but they still fail in their business or their endeavor. They've put in a lot of effort. So, should they become bitter? Should they think that, it's generally, I mean, by the time we turn 40, we all accept that there is a bigger card than our card. We all accept it. Maybe not in our 20s and 30s, but by our mid 40s and 50s and 60s for sure, So we start saying, what is it? Is all our actions just dummy actions? Am I just a puppet? And sometimes it can be quite depressing, this fatalistic thinking. So this is where I wanted to clarify, and actually Lord himself clarifies it. And he says that, and because of the fatalistic thinking, people even don't want to act. Like, what is there? What should I do? Well, if he wants to do it, God wants, they'll be done. Why should I do, etc. So all these thoughts start coming. But now let me give, so what is fate and what is your effort? What is your purushartha and what is bhaga? Bhaga, B-H-A-A-G-A, bhaga means fate. So what is bhaga and what is your purushartha? What is that part? So a real simple example that was coming to my mind was, this online class that we are doing on Bhagavad Gita, So as part of Brahma Yajna, as part of my debt to my guru, as an Acharya, I was requested by students, they wish to study Bhagavad Gita. I said, I'm glad to have committed students who want to listen. And I decided that, yes, I'd like to teach. And, what I can do to make this happen is I'd like to start Bhagavad Gita. I'd like to complete it or reach a certain point in it, at least in my lifetime. I'd like this class to keep going. I would like things, so what can I do? So what I can do is I can keep showing up. I can prepare for it. I can prepare my notes for it. I can do many things that I can do for it. I can make sure that my calendar is free. I can try to be rested to teach you. I can eat on time to teach you. So all these things I can do. I can bring all this, to this classroom for it to show up, So this is all in my jurisdiction. I can control all this. So this is my willpower, I'm actually using my willpower to eat sattvic food. So my transmission is sattvic to you. I'm using my willpower to be rested so that tamas doesn't build up, physiologically in my being, and I'm yawning along the way. These are all my willpower that I'm cultivating, for this transmission. But there are many things that are not in my control. For example, that the power supply will go on operating and I can still teach you. There's no power breakdown. That's not in my control. So that goes into fate for me. For me, it becomes fate. I can't control the Wi-Fi. So right now the Wi-Fi is fine. So I would say, okay, Wi-Fi goes in fate for me right now. I cannot determine that, the teacher, student says to the teacher, thank you for being my teacher. And student says, well, thank you for being my student because now I can be a teacher. So it's like, how can the teacher teach if the students don't show up? So I can't control if you shall show up or not. Okay, we can tell the office to send you a reminder. But if each one of you said, okay, today I won't show up, somebody else will, just like today I won't vote, somebody else will. It might be that one day I show up, none of you show up. It's just a random day. So that day the class will not happen. So these are all things that are not in my control. And this we call destiny, because these things are, I could possibly sit down and make an Excel sheet and call everybody up and remind them, then double call the power department and make sure the Wi-Fi backup. I could do so many things, but I'm sure there are still a few more uncontrollable things that would be beyond my control, and that I would call bhaga or destiny. Similarly, for you as a student, you can show up. You've cleared your calendar to show up. You're sitting here alert, with spine erect, etc. But you can't be sure that your Wi-Fi will work, your power will work, and you can't even be sure that your teacher will show up. So for I represent your destiny. You can only do your part. So therefore, so both these things are cooperating. And this is what we must understand, and we don't often pay attention to it. So we think, the scientist thinks everything is under our control, and the fatalist think, or the religious-minded people can think everything is in the name of God, but the rationalist, Bhagavad Gita and the Veda and Jnana Yoga wants to make us rational, realistic. It says, part of it is in your control, part of it is outside your control, and that's how it goes. You are not the total controller, but you are a very important contributor to that totality. And so the totality is called Ishvara Ichcha. Another word is Ichcha. Maybe we can spell it as EECCHHA, maybe, I don't know, Vidya can write that. Ichcha, Ishvara Ichcha means Ishvara's will, and your will is, Jiva Ichcha, or Ichcha or Jiva Purushartha, But Lord doesn't do Purushartha, it's his wish, Ichcha, wish. And for us, we have to use our will. So we have this. So there is your will, and then there is God's will. And definitely, so there is these two juxtapositions that is in the lay of the land. The Vedas never resorted to imaginary demons and imaginary gods and imaginary anything. In fact, all the Hindu pantheon gods are just our imagination. And we are free to create any new god at any time. But God in the Veda is formless, because nobody has seen God, but only felt God, and has benefited from the imagination faculty given by God to imagine God. So we were given. So Hinduism doesn't have a lot of gods; it just has a lot of ways of imagining gods. Okay, so therefore. We are never given a very imaginary way of living in the world. We are actually taught a very realistic, rational way of understanding where we are at, this samsara, and how to traverse it. And I find that really fascinating and interesting, because the understanding that my will is constantly being covered by God's will at the same time leaves me free to take care of my jurisdiction and then let it go. Just leave it, release it, because then it shall be in God's jurisdiction. I remember a case which I'm actually writing about in my current book, so it's active in my mind, is that my first book released 2017. Yeah. And probably it was the second or third day of the release. And I went for my second book release event in the South Bay. Typically, in that place, I have been there. It was the first place I had ever lectured since I came into this country. And I have always lectured to full houses, you know. I've always had a really good audience there. So I thought that, I'll walk in and there'll be at least 40, 50, 60, 80 people, if who knows. And, I'll just be there. So second or third day of the book launch, I had my things to do. I had my willpower, which I had used to line up some events which my publisher wanted. That's the thing you have to do. Okay, that's what we'll do. My assistant had lined all this up. So I showed up, a student drove me, I showed up and I walked in and there was only one person. Okay. So we said, we'll give it some time when nobody came. And there was only one person. So I fortunately had, a lot of experience with my will, God will. So I said, okay, this one person is showing up. So I and my student and that person, I sat in the middle and I opened a laptop. Earlier, I was going to project it on their screen, but instead I opened a laptop and I kind of took her through some, images of, Dinacharya, this, that, talked about my book. And, was comfortable, I believe I and my student had a snack and Ayurvedically appropriate. And then we came home and I went to bed. And you could ask me if I was disappointed, because I've been so in the past disappointed, and then I've been appointed in the sense I've been using Karma Yoga. So I was very curious. I'm like, wow, interesting. So I'm not even sure if it was a disappointment, but it was not such a big deal for sure. And for somebody else, because I'm still around, and I'm interestingly writing my second book. And then I went to bed and I had some more events the next day, and probably for the next 6 months, I was so busy, and most of the events I went to were jam-packed, and through the podcast, I reached thousands of people, and many of you are students from that. So it was just a one-time event, but that's what it was. Many days later, I met at least 2 or 3 different people who said, we were trying to catch you on that event in South Bay, but there was some construction going on. So we drove around, we couldn't find parking, so we left. And so there is a possibility that a lot of people looked, because it was a busy area. And so they looked and they didn't find the parking and they left. So these were out of my control. But if I didn't have Karma Yoga in my mind, I was like, oh, I have failed, the book has failed, and, come home and be so disappointed and carry that little shame in you and know that you're not worth it and, what not. But fortunately, Karma Yoga was, by that time, quite a practice for me. I'm like, oh, well, I did my part. So that's just my, relatively recent example of a interesting way that God's will played out for me. And then when God's will decided that I'm going to walk into very, very busy rooms, more busy launches than I had expected, that was also God's will. But what was in my jurisdiction was to show up on time, to not lose my sense of balance, to not get so dejected when people didn't show up, not get so full of myself when more people showed up. It's just what it is. So these are the things that, happen in everybody's life. So Karma Yoga is preparing us for the ups and downs of life, the dvandas, the opposites that are coming our way. So I'm showing up as your fate, you're showing up as my fate. You can only control what's in your jurisdiction. So, so this is what it means by, this is what it means when we say karma, you have te adhikara, a choice over action alone. Ma kadachana phaleshu. Never over results. This never, even though the word means never, it's always explained by the teacher. What does never mean? Because if you didn't do your part, you are not contributing to that totality. Because if you look at ma kadachana phaleshu, never over results, you also have to connect it to the last line, which says, Mate astu sangha akarmani. May you not have an inclination towards non-action. What he's trying to say here is that some of us get really afraid of this unpredictability. We can't handle bhaga. We only want purushartha. We want it to be like a calculation and it should go this way. And when it doesn't go, we quickly get scared or we lose our heart and we get really afraid. So what we do is we say, okay, then here's what I can do. I'll just not, take any actions. I'll just hide. Now, sure, hiding will prevent you. You can hide, many people hide in relationships, many people hide from their full potential, and, they hide. But inaction, because we were so fatalistic and we became so frustrated, so we dropped all actions. So, yeah, there is an advantage in hiding that you will never fail. If you never start a relationship, you will never know the relationship failed. If you don't try to write a book, you will never know, you don't have to take the risk of it failing, If you don't go to a book launch, you will never have to deal with only one person showing up. So, sure, there is a huge advantage in not taking actions, Good, you don't fail, you got it right. But Krishna says that there is a huge disadvantage also of akarma, of non-action, is that right there you had an opportunity for inner growth. Remember, karma yoga is all about inner growth. So when I showed up with that one person and I was in equanimity, I don't know, but that student may have really benefited from seeing me in equanimity during that time, after that time, the next day, in my life. And I was in equanimity when I saw that one person, because then when I was met by hundreds of people, they could not take away my equanimity. So what I strengthened, the gem within me was that, yeah, I have equanimity, like got milk, got equanimity, I have it. So, if we don't take that risk, we would never grow. I can give the example of, one version of Ayurveda that we were teaching for about 6 to 7 years at Vedika, and it was reasonably successful. But it was hard to sustain, and it also required that, I continue to mold my intuitive understanding of how Ayurveda should be taught to standards that were being set by well-meaning people, but they were not my standards. And I was feeling like if I continue developing an Ayurveda program around that, I had to question, why am I doing it? Like, was I born to run an Ayurveda program? Am I the principal of an Ayurveda program and I need my Ayurveda program to get somewhere? It must run now that I've started it. Or was Ayurveda an expression of my joy? And when it was no longer my joy, I closed it, So from a logistical purpose, it failed. But from an inner growth purpose, it really blossomed what I have now going on. I could create the space for the historic, Ayurveda ancestral teachings, and students who've gone to those 18 classes, swear by them that their life and their health has changed. And then the first year class, the 1 year course that we are teaching online with some retreats, it's beautiful. We're able to reach people all over, in different parts of the country and the world. And we are also able to, touch them at so many deeper levels. So, and the inner growth that happened was that it gave us the ability to know that, we're okay no matter what, and we are continuing to choose joy over some external, parameters. We weren't, I mean, at least I didn't feel like I was in a bondage to prove something. For me, it was more important. Okay, Brahma Yajna is more important, lineage, sampradaya, some of those nitya, anitya, what was more nitya or eternal for me was, is the Vedic truth coming through? Is the soul coming through the Ayurveda teachings? Or is it all becoming about quizzes and tests and memorization? And I was becoming the kind of teacher who had to remind people, did you do your test or not? And the students, instead of having conversations around Atma and self-realization, or having questions around, well, why did you give me less points in my quiz? I think I deserved more. And I was not born to be having these kind of conversations, though I had them till I had to. There was not one day less that I taught or one day more. I completed all my duties with equanimity, knowing that, okay, this is in my jurisdiction. And somehow God's will was that the course went this way. And I kept slowly being persistent until I could end the courses in spite of students wanting to continue. I said, no, the train is not going further. And what happened was I grew even more strong in what I believe in. I, as in not the ego I, but like, okay, what part of me is serving the truth here, and not just following a protocol. From an external perspective, failure. From an internal perspective, success. And that's what it is. Probably now we have another Ayurveda program to boast. But what if we didn't have an Ayurveda program to boast? We can still say that sometimes what looks like a failure is really still useful for inner growth. I gave the example of one of my relatives who's had a life of failures, but that person is just, a shining light. Not a failure because they were lazy, they were, stupid, they were, not applying, stupid as in they were sabotaging themselves, not because they were going to work drunk. They put in every effort, but they were karma yogis. But God's will was that they got results differently, but he kept applying his willpower. So there is a well-known story. It's on the internet everywhere, and I've also read it, where somebody says, I may not have it right now because I read it many years ago, that somebody asked a very rich and successful corporate person, how did you make it so big in life? And he was, reticent in answering questions, but finally he said, I have a lot of experience. And he said, oh, really? So what other successful experiences you've had to be so successful? I said, oh, I've had a lot of failures before this success, and they make up for what I am today. So, it's a nice way of understanding that you put in your effort, know where your jurisdiction is, and bring all your attention in cultivating that garden, but then leave the results to God's will or bhaga or Ishvara Ichcha. These are some other words. Sanskrit is a very rich language. So we have so many words for one thing. So I may just use them back and forth. Ishvara's wish, which is always for our own benefit, because Ishvara is not living in a cloud. Ishvara is here also. So probably I've taught in other classes that when difficulty comes, we can milk it for inner growth, So therefore, this is where we, so this is the disadvantage of not taking action. Also, sometimes this is important for me to mention that sometimes spiritual seekers feel that, I should not take any action. I should just sit there and be completely still and meditate. And I was teaching in Sadhana Chittashtam that in very advanced stages, and that's also a phase, because one student has gone through that stage, they come back in the world and they're quite dynamic. But just for a while, when their mind is rewiring itself, we even give the students permission to not, permission, or like we support them in just sitting still, maybe not even offering seva, etc. They just come to satsang. That's it. So it's a very earned space that they have where they are, or like for example, a mother is about to give birth, then everybody tells the mother, okay, you just sit on your feet and you give us orders. That's what we do to a student who's about to awaken. You just sit on your feet because you're about to give birth to new you. So just for a short while, and once they've given birth, they can be doing anything. It doesn't matter. They don't have to sit and hold a japamala or anything because they are already awake. Why do they need to hold on to anything? So there are two things. One is called nivritti, where we move away from the world, and one is called pravritti, where we move in the world. And both are important. That is why in the ashrama stage of life, we have the compulsory grahastha ashrama stage, which is a pravritti. You stay involved in the world. And then we have nivritti, move away from the world. Some students just want to bypass it, and most religions teach that, most spiritual traditions teach that. Just, okay, you are ready for spiritual work, leave the family, leave the work, leave your regular clothes, even leave your, belongings, attachments. And go into nivritti path. That's one way. But the Veda says no. You must, it's a beginning stage, stay in the world, but stay with karma yoga. Don't control outcomes. See, you can stay in the world. So your teacher is in the world and she goes for a very worldly task like book launch, and she meets Ishvara's will in the form of one person. And she uses karma yoga to stay balanced. This is a in the world spirituality. Okay. And if we had too early retired, from the world, we would never know how would we handle this kind of a situation. Okay. So that is why withdrawal is also important. Involvement with the world is also important. What involvement can teach you, withdrawal cannot teach you. What withdrawal can teach you, involvement cannot teach you. And Lord wants to say they both have their place. That's why we have an ashrama scheme. It's such a brilliant scheme. And right now, he's talking to Arjuna, and we are all Arjuna. We are all in the middle of our battlefields of our life. So what do we need? We need to stay involved. And how will we stay involved? By understanding what is our jurisdiction and what is not. And understanding how, when we do something, we don't know what the results will come. But therefore, we don't have no control on our actions. We have limited control. No, we have no control on our results. No, we have limited control over the results. How? By doing our part, because we have a choice, and we should use that choice with wisdom. And that is why he has said towards the end, Matyastu Sangha Akarmani, may you not have inclination towards non-action. Why? Because some people will get afraid of this God destiny working and say, oh, okay, bare baba, I cannot do this. This is too much. I just cannot handle it. And so therefore they cannot take even calculated risk. Life is a risk. I am teaching Bhagavad Gita. It's, somebody may like the teaching, somebody may not like this teaching. Sometime I might be able to do justice to it. Sometime after the class I might feel, oh, I forgot to tell you that. So it's not it's not like I'm teaching Bhagavad Gita for the 20th time. Every time a teacher opens a text, it's the first time, and you're taking a risk. If you do anything in life, you cross the street, it's a risk. Some people cross the street and they never manage to cross it. It's a risk. Life is a risk. But just to be inactive, to control everything, is stopping the flow of life. And then you are not a karma yogi. You are only a karmi, because in a way you are trying to manipulate the situations. There are some people who are afraid of relationships. They may be bitten by a few relationships, or some astrologer may have told them. So what they do is they paralyze, they freeze themselves in intimate relationships. And then what happens is they don't really get the learning that they should be getting in the laboratory of life. And we are not asking you to descend in the laboratory of life as rogues or risk takers We are asking you to descend into the laboratory with very clear attitudes of karma yoga, which have just begun. And you can see how much this will be useful, because then your the results of your actions, of your consecrated effort, will be a byproduct or something by the way, and you will more focus upon your actions. And then he says, may you not be motivated, ma bhuhu karma phal hetuhu. May you not be motivated by the results of action. So instead of constantly looking at the action which is in the future, you will start being in the now. See, this is the now teachings. You will focus on the task at hand. If you're cooking food also, if you constantly think, well, how will it be? What will it be? You can't cook. To cook, you have to be in the now, inhaling, smelling, tasting, looking. All your senses have to be involved, all your intelligence, your presence. You can't think, oh, every time I make eggplant, it always goes bad. So now this will also go bad. So, with projection and future. Or we have overconfidence. Oh, whenever I make eggplant, it's such a success. So, and then you don't pay attention. And then you put in a dash too much salt, and cooks will agree that every recipe, even if you've made it 1,000,000 times, it's brand new. Every time I teach a class, I have taught so many times a class, but my every encounter with you is brand new in the now. That is why there are no slips and misses and oops. It's not like, oh, I am such a great communicator. We have already decided, oh, I'm such a great communicator, I'll just go on autopilot. No, because then that's like you've already taken a decision. You have to be in the now, focusing upon the action. And when you focus upon the action being taken, then what happens is you bring in all your Shakti, all your attentiveness, all your Viveka Shakti, Vairagyam Shakti. You are discerning what you have to do, what you don't have to do. So it becomes so clear. And then there is a good chance that because you're not worrying about the future and predicting outcomes, you are in that moment. And you know what happens? When you get released from the worry of the future, you start enjoying yourself. And if you wonder how, at least that's the key of how I'm happy at Vedika. Uh, if you, when people interview me, they go, what was your vision and what's your mission? We came up with a few lines, but I have no vision and mission. Okay, I'm in that now, enjoying myself. So we can come up with a few things for people, for the public. But the reality is that if your journey can become a joy, then it doesn't matter what results you reach or not. So for my uncle, even though all the results didn't lead to where he wanted, but his whole journey is playful because he met so many people, he had so many adventures, he enjoyed so many creative ideas. And he said, okay, in this lifetime, I didn't make wealth. That's up to Ishvara. But I have inner wealth. And I really, he has not studied the Gita. And he doesn't look like the kind of person I can just teach him the Gita. But when I observe him, I feel like he might have studied it in some lifetime because he knows the principles, He's childlike, his childlike exuberance he brings. So that you get the reward of your performance in the moment. Suppose you are a painter, and every time you go to your canvas, you're enjoying yourself, you're having a blast. And because you're a karma yogi, you already know that you don't even know if this painting will end result, because there is your jurisdiction and then there is Ishvara's jurisdiction, the bhaga part. So you just show up and you're grateful that you are still painting. You enjoy yourself. You're splashing the colors. You are getting moment to moment enjoyment. So if that painting sells for, the money that you thought you'd like, or, it came, mostly you won't think, but came to, it's fine. If it keeps sitting with you, it's fine, because you've already had your fun with it, see? So this is how people, karma yogis, are quite radiant and they quite enjoy their life. And there are others who are just always, thinking about what will happen in the future, and they are worried about imaginary scenarios. And there are some people, they are so creative, they are not even worried about what they are doing. They're even worried about what they are not doing, imaginary, when I get married, then when this happens, and then when that happens, all cooked up scenarios. So it's a mind that's completely out of control. And this is where karma yoga and understanding jurisdictions and why we should stay where Lord has allotted us, and really bring our attentiveness, our mindfulness, our creativity, our originality, our happiness, our love, our devotion, our shaucham, beauty, everything to it. Our jurisdiction will start shining. That's all I can, say to you. So, somebody might say, okay, you know what, I'd like to lose some weight. And some people just focus on, I want to lose weight. So they get onto the weighing machine, and, when they don't lose weight, they lose their heart too. But if they were karma yogis, they say, yeah, I'd like to lose some weight. And, I hope I can. And then what they do is they say, okay, every day I'll walk, then I'll play tennis, and then I will work in the garden, and then I will cook some amazing, moon crepes. And before you know it, they've just started really enjoying their lifestyle, and they've made new friends on the new walking trail they've found out. And then they decided they'd love to, get a dog to walk with. So now they have a new companion in their life. And so we don't know if they've lost the weight, but what are the chances that they will? And what are the chances they're still at it because they're so happy? And because they are not controlling every outcome, all the time. And they're taking the risk, when you say I'm going to lose weight, there's a risk that you might not. There's a risk that it might not happen right away. When you plant a tree, there's a risk that it will give its first fruit after 18 years, right before you have to leave that house. But that gardener didn't give up loving that tree. All the other trees are my babies, but not this one. It kept tending to it. And, it brought tears to my eyes hearing that, wow, that's a karma yogi right there. So we can convert our jurisdiction, which is where is our actions, into our reward, into our happiness, or we could completely lose it by trying to get into Ishvara's jurisdiction, into the bhaga part, when clearly we can see that the whole universe has part contribution and part totality, which is not part of us. So we should know where we belong. So, so when he says, last piece, may you not be motivated by the results of action, ma buhu karma phaletu, not only because it is not your jurisdiction, but most people tend to control their actions, mostly people who are invested in artha kama, money, relationships, these kind of things. With dharma moksha, they are not so worried. But with artha kama, it tends to keep them very material gain, what will happen in my old age, what am I going to do, all that gets them going really heavily. So when he's also saying, may you not be motivated by the results of action, in a way he's saying, come on, don't just be focused on artha kama, but bring in dharma moksha too, So that is what he is saying. And let's see, maybe this is where I'll end. And then we can discuss this. So in short, te adhikara, you have a choice, karmani eva, over your actions. Please take this willpower and use it to your full advantage. Ma karchana phaleshu, but your choice, but your free will over results is limited only to your contributing part, but not to what comes back to you. So therefore, ma bhu karma phal hetu, who may you not be motivated by the results of action. One, by understanding why it is not in your jurisdiction, by therefore focusing and enjoying yourself on what is your jurisdiction, really making your action your reward, and finally by making sure, because typically when we are karmis or not karma yogis, that deep down, that is our vein of thought, then that is where we start getting very involved with controlling outcomes. But If we bring in dharma moksha, then moksha part will keep reminding you that you are already fulfilled. So if, hey, somewhere, if you lost some money or gained some money, there is a bigger scheme that will take care of you. Mate astu sangha akarmani, may you not have an inclination towards non-action, and therefore you should understand that there is a time for non-action and there is a time for action. This is not the time for non-action, and definitely looking at all of you in the 21st century, and because we are also a Grahastha Sadhu lineage, and because the Vedas are somewhat of they made Grahastha ashram mandatory. Grahastha means being involved in the world. It doesn't mean marriage. It means that go on, stay in the world, do what you usually do, but bring in karma yoga actions. A simple example could be that you are an engineer and you are being asked to lead a project. You may usually not get promotions or recognition, but because if you're a karma yogi, you'll still bring in dharma. So you'll do your part. You won't sulk. And because you're doing moksha, you will be creative in the process. And you just do your part. Keep doing it, because you don't know when the results would come, and you let it be. And I don't want to promise that, the results will come, they'll come more. I'm not going there. I'm just saying you do your part and you have fun with it. And while you are doing that part, you might find that your health is increasing. You may not get a promotion. Your peers are respecting you. You're whistling to yourself on the way to work, rather than making that one thing about the last time I did a great project, I didn't get a promotion. So therefore, I'm not sure if I want to work. You see how we mess up our mind. But a karma yogi probably understands that maybe not getting a promotion was part of bhaga, God's will. And whoever came in the way was just playing a role there. So you focus on your jurisdiction. Could also be finding another job. Your jurisdiction could be increasing your training. Your jurisdiction could be thinking positive thoughts. So what is your jurisdiction? Stay vigilant there. What is not in yours, gratefully turn it over, surrender it back to Ishvara, and find the peace of mind that every sincere karma yogi has enjoyed from time immemorial. I was recently talking to some newer student who mentioned to me how just listening to basic teachings on karma yoga has allowed the student to feel much more peace of mind than ever. So imagine we have a whole chapter coming up on karma yoga. So you guys are going to be walking around with super peaceful mind. So that's the only side effect. What are you going to do when you stop controlling outcomes? That's the thing. So with this, I'll stop. And it was lovely teaching you these 2 shlokas. And I will be happy to take on any questions or just your happy comments or recognition of the value of this teaching. You're welcome. You can raise your hand. I think Maria is raising her hand.
I can't see your hand raised, Maria.
Yeah, I am.
Go ahead and unmute yourself. Good, thank you.
Okay. I feel that I just discovered something so huge about myself. When I was 28 years old, I started preparing my body for a pregnancy. And I was living in Japan, and I had a Chinese doctor there who taught me everything I needed to do to prepare my body. And I moved back to the United States in July of that year, and I became pregnant immediately in November. A very conscious conception. And from the moment I conceived and every moment before and after, I nurtured my body completely. I did yoga, I walked 5 miles a day, I cooked every meal for my baby. And while she grew in the womb, I felt completely filled with her presence. And during that time, I decided that I would give birth at home because I didn't want to have medical interventions that might harm me or my baby. And I became the poster child for my midwife. She said she'd never seen anybody so healthy during their pregnancy and so conscious about giving birth. And I gave birth at home very easily. I gave birth to a perfectly healthy baby, scored a 9 on her APGAR, and then she died the next day. And that was a moment that I had felt I had done everything to create this perfect baby. And I just realized that I did give birth to a perfect baby, that just because she died did not mean that she did not do what she was here to do. And I was also a part of that. I did my free will, and then I gave it up to Ishvara, and she died. And she has been the greatest gift that I have ever had. And I've always known that part. But tonight I realized that after she died, I withdrew, but I didn't hide. And I'm realizing that for the first time tonight, that what I withdrew from no longer served me. I left my job and I never returned to it. I stopped being friends with some people because they didn't understand what I had gone through. But tonight I realized I wasn't hiding. And I feel so happy right now. I can't even contain myself.
Yes.
Because
and to know that not only was she perfect for that one day, but how perfect was Ishvara's will. I mean, it's like, it's beautiful. You did your part, Ishvara's doing his part, and you get the presents allocated for one perfect day. It's like, here's your beautiful fruit. It's beautiful. I'm excited too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you're right. Keep contemplating karma yoga, and this might be a huge teaching to your soul happening right now. You know, because you didn't hide, so that was good. But now you can use karma yoga to bring wholeness to all parts of you. You know, that are a bit shaded. They can all enjoy the sunshine, you know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that vulnerably enlightened share. God bless you. Yeah. Anyone else?
Melanie says, thank you so much, Shunyiji. This has been the main gift I've been working with for the past 2 years and continue to do so. It is an enduring gift for lifetimes. I definitely have had times of being paralyzed by fear and inclined to non-action in amongst all the fruits, good and bad. Today's teaching has been really precious.
Beautiful. And remember that if you look at some of the previous shlokas, then the action that we are being asked to take are not hasty actions, but sattvic actions, which will then get clarified in tamas. So when we say, don't hide in non-action, take action, we're not just saying become, or we're saying life is a risk, you can still take it. We're still teaching you strategy, but definitely, you know, you be out there and yeah.
Arjuna has a question.
Well, I lost transmission at the moment. So my question has to do with the word success and failure, because it seems to me that those words are a kind of laden in a duality themselves, and I just really wonder about how we use those words. Because it seems like there's no real success or failure. There's just learning. There's just fulfillment. There's not. I don't know. I mean, I'm just challenging the use of words. So it's a question I have.
Yeah, that's okay. You can challenge them. But the thing is, this is Karma Yoga teaching, not Jnana Yoga.
Yeah.
He has already come down to a more worldly level.
Huh?
These words have no meaning at the level of Atma Deva, you know.
Oh, okay.
But we are teaching we are learning a world of, we are talking to traders and bankers, and you know, and
Okay.
we care about success and failure. In fact, in the very next shloka, where did the in the very next shloka, he talks about siddhya. Siddhi means many things, but siddhi means success, and a siddhi means lack of success, a siddhi. So he's outright using it because he is teaching the worldly people, you know,
Okay.
people who pay taxes, people who make money, people who want to be successful or failed in a relationship, you know, somebody who's had the loss of a child. In spite of everything she could do, did she fail or did she succeed? These words matter for us in the here and now.
Yeah.
So this is the beauty of when we study Bhagavad Gita, you know, word by word, verse by verse. I like how you brought it up, but now you can see how this level of thinking, which is a transcendent thinking at Sakshi Bhava, belongs to Jnana Yoga,
I get you.
and not everybody is able to do it.
Right. So there's a flowering of consciousness throughout the whole.
Throughout the whole. But we always begin with Jnana Yoga,
Yeah.
and then we come down to Karma Yoga.
Top
Then
down.
we come down to Bhakti Yoga, because some people say, okay, you know, this is also too much sattva and all that. Let me just at least believe in God.
Right.
Not that God is any less, because God is at every level, right? In
Right.
Bhakti Yoga, we put God outside.
Uh-huh.
In Karma Yoga, we say, okay, we are transacting with God.
Yeah.
And in Jnana Yoga, we find God inside us. So God is everywhere. But you can see how there is a flowering of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me also, the word success and failure is important at the Karma Yoga level.
Yeah.
And let's not deny it that this is part of our worldly existence, because we are spirits we are embodied spirits in relationships.
Okay, so that helps me also understand about the free will, because I start to think that, well, what is free will if not choice? That we're and then I was thinking that, you know, you had spoken, I don't know which class, but about, you know, the voice that we all always have and that we always hear. And I'm more and more aware of that I have a choice of either to pay attention to that voice, you know, which is saying basically do this, don't do that, that kind of thing. I have the power to say, to go along with it, or to follow it would be better, or to say, no, I don't want to do that. And when I say I don't want to do that, it always ends up as a problem.
Yeah, so I can help you put it in perspective. Like when I talked about that inner voice, I was talking more in Jnana Yoga, inner Atma, Viveka perspective.
Yes, right.
And you shouldn't trust your voice if you don't go regularly to satsang, because then your voice could say, let's go to Las Vegas. What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. So we don't want to hear that voice, you know. So, but you can hear your voice, especially if it's the voice of dharma. You can try it out. It sounds a lot like your teachers. And it's always thinking more about everybody also, not just you, right? We talked about that. So if you want to bring that teaching into Karma Yoga right there, now this voice will learn to say, Arjuna, don't let your mind focus and control the future. Don't control why, you know, like, you know, you're counseling someone, Arjuna, and you did your best.
Yeah.
They didn't come back for the next appointment. No problem. Because you had fun when you were counseling them for that moment.
Yeah.
I know that I'm a very sincere teacher. Some students show up for class, some don't, some go away, some stay. It's not for me to control. I can just come and do my part, right? So your inner voice can learn these karma yoga things. What is that inner voice? It's that part of your ego. The ego is broken up into the part that is lost and the part that is connected with the witness. And if it starts talking to you, for all of you, it's a digression from karma yoga, and it starts teaching you Vedanta, it's a good thing
Right.
because it already knows Vedanta.
Right.
So, but you are in satsang and it doesn't, it's not some kind of insurgent voice taking you down some
Yeah.
strange path. Yeah.
Sure. I have one more question, but other people may have questions, so I'm happy to wait.
Okay.
Okay, we have 3 more questions, and we'll go with Vaidehi first, then Niramaya, and then Ishani.
Okay.
Vaidehi?
Jai Ma, this has been an observation from my own experience that one of the things that used to paralyze was not knowing everything that needed to be known before acting, waiting to make that perfect action. And then I realized that that really meant I was not willing to open myself up to the learning from that experience. That this is my state of consciousness, with whatever I've learned, whatever I've assimilated, whatever I've digested, and what I have not also. That's the state of my consciousness. And then acting with the best intention and acting with, the ideals that I believe in, there could still be a learning that's waiting for me. And so that helped me to come out of my paralysis and accept, surrendering the ego, so to speak, which wanted to be perfect and always doing the right thing, allowing that, becoming a student of what Ishvara wanted to teach me. So that helped me and continues to help me to come out of paralysis from action.
No, wonderful. That's really great share. So when I use the word risk, spiritual seekers should slow down and take action after judicious vivek vairagyam, right? Discernment. So if you are a bit slow, Vedehi, in taking action, I can understand. But if you are paralyzed, then, which you saw you were at times, and then you started moving forward with focusing on what you can do. But exactly what you pointed out, we cannot predict all the outcomes that will happen. We cannot. We just cannot. We cannot. I mean, there are times when we don't take action, but even that should be an action. Like I choose to stay silent on something versus bringing it up, but I should know that that's my action and not paralysis. You see what I mean? The difference?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The meaning of tapas,
Yeah.
the meaning of vak tapas and
Yeah.
self-restraint is very
Yeah.
different from paralysis. Yeah.
Very different from paralysis. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Next question.
Niramaya.
Yeah, I actually feel a little emotional. This touched on. I was reflecting on the fact that when I got into relationships, that I seemed to have a lot of jnana and wisdom, and then when I got married and then created households, I was reflecting on the fact that somehow it seemed like my wisdom went away. I just, it blanked out, or I stuffed it. And then I was reflecting on the fact that as a child, because I had seen an unhappy marriage in my parents, I had made my own decisions about, well, if I ever get married, then I'm not going to do those things. And so this whole set of things got stuck in place, and now it's like I'm just waking up and fighting my way out of this box. And so part of me has been beating myself up for saying, what happened to you and why did you get yourself in this mess? And today with this teaching, I'm actually feeling more proud of myself. Like, well, how would I have learned if I hadn't gotten in there and tried? And where would I get learning from?
Where would you get the learning from? Yeah. Niramaya, I feel that the only reason relationship exists is to give us suffering so that we can wake up. I have not met a single person who has not suffered inside relationships. I mean, maybe for a few years they don't, or for some time it doesn't, and maybe it's not there all the time, but in relationships, we get lost. Would you agree? Yeah, it's a micro world where you get lost. Then similarly in the creative field, we get lost, right? Then with our children, we get lost. And that is why Niramaya and everybody, it's good if you're out in the world, if given you've suffered, and then again, Lord's will, that when this Bhagavad Gita and a teacher, it's Bhaga, destiny, will show up and will show up in your life, you know, and then you'll hear that wisdom. But say this wisdom had come to you when you were 20 something, you won't even have understood what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not saying a 20-year-old can be a wise person too. I'm just saying these experiences make you know what to listen for. The way Maria is listening to Karma Yoga today versus when she was a young girl who has not gone through this life, it's a whole different thing. So what life does, it bakes us, it ripens us, you know, and then the fruit of knowledge, you know, grows there. It's all beautiful. It's all, with Karma Yoga, you know, life becomes already very smooth, and then with Jnana Yoga, you transcend to another level. That's why I'm daring to contend that all sorrow is virtual. It exists until we know the reason for it, you know. Wonderful. Next person.
Next will be, before I speak to Ashani, just one share from Chris Lee says, you have to stop controlling the outcome, just do your part. That is powerful, since I have a tendency to try to control the outcome.
And we can even, Chris, you know, I mean, I know I was using the word control the outcome, because that's what the Western way of saying it is. But I thought we could say, surrender the outcome to God, and do your part. Do your part beautifully, you know. It's not like we are controlling freaks. We actually have help in God. It's not a weakness to give away. It's like, man, I have my big dad, mom, Ishvara, taking care of what needs to come to me. That outcome that's coming is perfect. So it's actually, I feel like rejoicing. That's all I can say. I don't feel limited after a while when you bring Ishvara in it. But you're right, Chris, in the sense that do your part and have fun with it. Don't forget that part. Have fun with it.
And now Ashani.
Shema. One thing I'm learning from this class, one light that's been shown from this class, is that I find now reflecting any like confusion or about what to do or how to act has been from that kind of not knowing where my jurisdiction ends and where the Ishvara jurisdiction ends. And I'm one of those students that you're saying is like tempted sometimes to like let go of doing my part and saying, it's okay, it doesn't matter, I'm going to let go of that result, it's fine. But so I'm really looking forward to explore like where's that lip, where's that edge of where's my responsibility, and then I can let go. Where's that limit, and up until just to that lip of the drop off of letting go. And making sure that I'm filling that space vibrantly and intentionally and with wisdom and with activity, you know, just all the way up and until that lip, and then releasing. And so I'm looking forward to playing with that, finding that boundary between my action and the letting go.
I can help you a little bit. And just, you know, all your desires are your jurisdiction. All your legitimate desires are your jurisdiction. For artha, abundance, kama, pleasure. dharma, and moksha. You want moksha, that's why you're my student. Now, these are all your jurisdiction. And the actions you will take to fulfill them are your jurisdiction. Will you achieve moksha in this lifetime or not is not your jurisdiction. Will you be abundant one moment from now, one day from now, in your old age? We don't know. Your desire and your efforts are in your jurisdiction. Desire could be, I want to be abundant even in my old age, so I will put away some money every month. Fine, do it. That the bank doesn't go bankrupt, nobody can guarantee. Okay? So your desires and your, non-desperate efforts are totally in your, and you might be going on the way to the bank, and then somebody comes and robs your money on the way to the bank, then immediately you can say, okay, I was meant to hold on to the money only till 4 miles in the car. It only went 4 miles further. Now it has gone back to God. Because who is that robber? Who is that robber? You see, there's something called God, and then there is something called the robber. There is only God. So who is that robber? God only comes through birth. God doesn't come through death. God only comes through beauty. God never comes through ugliness. God only comes in youth. God never comes in decay. God only comes as Acharya. God never comes as a terrorist. God only is coming. It's all God's will. So this way, my child, just a little way to help you. You can put your little wish list, and Veda has said you can work a little bit towards your abundance, but you can try it. and make sure you're having fun with it. So when he says that, and don't get paralyzed, yeah. I hope that helps you, Shani.
Karen says, thank you, Shunya. This teaching is crystal clear now. It makes so much more sense, and it makes me feel so light. I will endeavor to keep it in mind and go over and over it in the next week to try and keep it as clear in front of mind as possible.
I would say this is headlight teaching. You can't forget this teaching. This is a very important shloka, and you must, go over it daily, make it a part of your life. This shall set you free. Constantly think about it. Even in your, relationships, what is your jurisdiction? You can speak your truth. You can clarify what is your reality. You can own your reality. When people rub their reality on you, you can gently push it back, saying, this is not my monkey, not my circus. What else can you do? No, some of these things I'm learning in American English, I love them. I will put them into the new Veda written by Acharya. They're very excellent things, It really helps. So what can you do beyond that? But if you're surrounded by, family members, or which is all Ishvara circulating around you, who are picking arguments with you, or they are hell-bent on not understanding you, or they are, misunderstanding you, or they are, continuing to barbecue something, or continuing to do while you are eating your khichdi. I'm giving examples. Then what can you do? You can say, look, this is I can do my part. It's God's will. It's so helpful then. Then we don't have to be like, my spiritual life is challenged. No, it's perfect. This is your life. So this jurisdiction business has really helped you become free, to focus on your actions. Similarly, as an Acharya, I teach and I explain. But if a student doesn't understand, I go, okay, this is where my jurisdiction ends. Maybe that student will find another teacher as per God's will. Maybe the student will find another God, in another lifetime they'll be ready. Oh no, such a big plan is going on. We are part of it. Okay, Aparna?
We have one more question. Well, possibly two, but for now, let's go with Lakshmi.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this teaching, and I feel like I was practicing it this week. Just the idea of not having any attachment to the results, and also not being stopped. But what happened was we adopted a cat, and he had tons of abscesses in his mouth, and he also is old and has a heart murmur. So many vets had told me he could die if we tried to pull the teeth. And I had just had my special cat die last year. So it was this idea of not freezing in the face of death. And death has always been something as a child that I was very afraid of, even into my 20s and 30s. And so this time around, it was like I had so much peace making the decision that, oh yes, we're going to go ahead with it, and either he's going to live or he's going to die. And I'm just thanking God for the time that I shared with him. And I got to talk to him before and just to say thank you as a soul for giving me his love. And then I just let it go to God. And he made it through. And the whole time I was amazed at how peaceful it felt just by letting go of the result.
Yes, by trusting, by surrendering that there is Ishvara's will too for the cat. And what I want to point out is that you did your purushartha, you did the right thing. Your mom, you're not going to let the cat just suffer from all kinds of nerve and dental pain and tissue abscess. So you're doing the right thing for the baby. And, life and death is not your department anyway. With life and death, it's so easy because that's God's ichha. Period. So that's like very easy decision to make from that perspective.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. Karma yoga, this is taking the risk, whereas once it would have, paralyzed us. But when we start understanding our jurisdiction, we become free to focus upon it. And moment to moment, we let the results come back to us in a positive, negative, or mixed manner. And actually, we kind of be delighted with it. You're feeling so relieved. Can you imagine 10, 15 years of working with this? How light you become if you're feeling light now. And then you walk into a room expecting 80 people and one person shows up. Do you really think it's such a big deal that I'm boasting about? I'm just finding an example to tell you. I'm not even boasting. It's like it becomes routine, these kind of things. So the shocks of life where, some people, say 10 people were trying to invest in something and different people lost money. Different people have different reactions. Somebody commits suicide, somebody gets depressed, somebody gets angry and acts out on another. And somebody who knows karma yoga may say, it's okay. Yeah, so what? Failures come, success comes, failure comes. I've had a whole bunch of failures. It's okay. I'm growing. It's all external. I'm growing internally. This is amazing. This is what and then they'll excitedly tell you what they learned. So that then you can tell that they have a guru somewhere, or they are listening to some Bhagavad Gita commentary by some, worthy, beautiful soul, and they are benefiting. And there are a lot of karma yogis I have met in India, because fortunately, one very popular scripture that is taught in temple every few miles in India is Bhagavad Gita. So many times the daughter-in-law's strategy is, when their mother-in-law is quite a little bit of a pain in the neck, then the other daughter-in-law from the neighbor will tell them, start sending your mother-in-law to the mandir, to the temple, for the discourse by Babaji on Gita. And in few weeks, things will get better. So always the goal is to send the cranky person to the Bhagavad Gita discourse, because they come back so peaceful. Then if the daughter-in-law burns the dal or doesn't, soak the khichdi, mother-in-law will say, never mind, you did your part. So Bhagavad Gita deconditions us, makes us stress-free. No, that's a different thing that mother-in-law is trying to send the daughter-in-law to the Gita discourse. That's a different thing. Everybody is trying to send everybody else. Babaji is very good, you should go. That is the whole story in every household in India. But the point is that even if one person goes, jokes apart, if whoever starts going, starts feeling relief, and they feel like they can settle down and enjoy their life, and that's the beauty of it. So with this, I shall end. As you can see, our progress has a bit slowed down because each of the shloka is so packed with wisdom. And so this shloka, it's an unforgettable shloka. You have to make it a part of your life, and may this become your living reality. That is my hope. Jai Ma, everyone. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Ever grateful for this great scripture, Jai Ma.